Whew, how hard is it to get up here after all those children speaking? Holy dooly, like if I wasn't nervous before, I am now. They just put us to shame. So I just want to take a moment to sit with that and acknowledge how incredible have the children been that are up here speaking today, because as an adult, and I've done it a couple of times now, not a lot, but it's really nerve-wracking. So to be up here as a child, I just couldn't think of anything worse, because I can't think of anything worse as an adult. But nevertheless, I am very excited and humbled to be here today with my sister Kaycee, and we're going to present to you something that some of you in the room may have seen, and some of you may not have, because we have done this content before. So play is a journey. We are Curious Me, and before we continue, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would like to take a moment, and I know that she's not here, but to thank Auntie Robin for the beautiful welcome to country that she did yesterday. And everywhere that we present, we do start with Jingaree, because we are also on Yugambeh country, and it is such a privilege to be sort of on our home soil today, speaking to you people in the room. So to all of our First Nations people in the room, thank you so much for having us. We also, as I just said, play on Yugambeh land, and embedding First Nations perspectives into our program is something that sits really deeply with us. Our whole space is rolled around a yarning circle that's in the middle of where we play. This one's a little bit different though. We also like to take a moment to acknowledge the disability rights, and as neurodivergent mothers of neurodivergent children, you will notice that I cannot stand still. I will pace the whole time. Kaycee is the opposite. She can only sit still when we're up here. So we would like to give you permission that if you have been sitting for too long and you would like to get up and stretch and move, we work with children. There is not a single thing that anybody in this room can do that will surprise us or stop us from talking. So if you want to sit down, roll around, go and stand at the corners, stretch your legs, we're totally fine with that. So we're Curious Me. Some of you will know who we are. We do live, work and play here in Logan. We founded this business in 2018 when I just did not want to go back to a corporate job. Basically, I had a child, so I became a mother, and that was a profound change in my life of what I wanted to do. I did actually come from the corporate world, so I sat behind a computer screen all day. I don't know why anybody would ever do that to all of you guys in the room. And now we spend most of our time outside playing. We also do a bit of this. We advocate for children, children's right to play, but also inclusion. We also do some professional development and stuff now, but that's pretty much us. I would like to take a moment to point out that the photos in this presentation are genuine photos. They are from our play space. They are children in our environment. The only reason why I do that is because somebody actually once asked me, are these stock images? And no, they're not. We did have a photographer join us that just would snap photos of the children playing freely, and because of that I have an abundance of content, but these are authentically children playing in our space, except for this one, which is our little family. So the little man in the front there is my eldest son, and he is the reason why we started this business. He is the one who made me not want to return to work. But as you know, my name's Angie. I'll do most of the talking today, and this is my sister and co-founder Kaycee, who will chime in occasionally. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, friends. I am Kaycee. I am not at all a professional speaker. I can hear myself. It's weird. So please be patient. I had been in the early education system for about 15 years before Angie peer pressured me into starting a business with her. She needed an educator, and I was her sister, so she made me do it. It was the best peer pressure I have ever given into. I wouldn't change anything. I love what we do. The two girls are mine, the eldest one and the wild one. They're my two children, both autistic, ADHD. I am also living the unmedicated, undiagnosed, neurodivergent lifestyle, and some days that's really hard, and I leave my keys and phone absolutely everywhere, but that's okay, at least I've got a reason for it now. And that's me in a nutshell. Back to you.
What Kaycee neglected to say is that little wild thing in the corner. And we say that with, hearts that admire her amazing personality, and it's so much of the reason why we advocate for inclusive play and letting children just show up as their most authentic selves. She was 6 weeks old when we started this business. So my son was about 7 months old, but Kaycee was still recovering from a cesarean. And I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Come on, let's start a business. Who does that? But anyway. So, Curious Me, for those who know us, this kind of needs no introduction, but for those who don't, we are authentically curious. Children in our space follow their curiosity, and that is what sets out their play for the day. So we provide a number of invitations, but what those children do with those resources is entirely up to them. We don't give them any prescription. We don't give them any kind of signs to say that this is what they should do with those materials. It is entirely up to them, despite the fact that I received a 1-star review for that. 7 years of doing this and I got my first 1-star review. How rude. And that 1-star review, I need to talk about that, was because I didn't have any signs explaining to the children what they were supposed to do. So everybody, it's no shade if you put signs up, but I just want that to sit with you for a moment, that as adults, this is what we now expect, is that we will provide all of the instructions and all of the step-by-step guidance for the children in their play. So yeah, I could do a whole spiel on that. But we're also always outdoors. So we are here today as our most authentic selves because we have been outside for the last 2 days playing in the heat. So please excuse us if you do come up to us that it has been hot and we are sweaty. But this is what we do. We play outside in nature all year round, all weather. It's very hard if we are asked to play inside. It's just like a no. It's probably not going to happen. We very rarely do anything indoors, and we are.
It will never happen. We will never play inside.
It's too many restrictions when you play inside. People tend to get really worried about the things that will ruin. And we are unapologetically messy, and it is not necessarily because it is messy play. Mess is a byproduct of child-led authentic play. Children make mess when they play. It's not something that we like as adults, but it is something that children do when they are given the time, the freedom, and the resources. Oh my goodness, do they make a mess? Okay, so we just want people to understand that the mess is actually a byproduct of what happens when we let children do their own thing. And if you've had a chance to go downstairs today, you will see exactly that. So, who wants to do the awkward talky thing? Because we're going to do the awkward talky thing. We're play people, so we have kind of this different perspective on play to a lot of other people in the room. I also recognise that not everybody in this room is not a play person. So our question to you is, do you believe that there is a role for parents in their child's play? I've already got a nod. Do you want to talk?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And then the second question is, does that role actually impact?
So who would...
I had a nod right here. Throwing you on the bus.
Thank you. My name's Penny. I'm from Play Matters Australia. We do believe that parents have a role in play, not to direct play,
yes,
but to create environments and give permission for play and time and space for play, and to scaffold children's learning in play. How can you extend it and grow it and continue to grow their learning and development?
Yeah, perfect. And do you think they have an impact on that play, be it positively or negatively?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Wait, more? Give me more.
I think they can have both a positive and negative impact.
Yep.
Positively, as I described before, where they're actually creating opportunities to further extend play. Negatively, if they're not creating those opportunities for play or closing off play. Your description about playing outdoors, not creating environments where children are safe to go outdoors and explore and take risks, that's what parents should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to be the person who's going to put their hand up? Oh, I've got a child with their hand up. Just... Yeah, okay. Oh, how exciting is that? What better way than to get a perspective than a child?
Thank you. What do you believe is the role of a parent in children's play?
They work.
Do you like the way we do things in play work? Why? Can you tell me why? If you don't like people looking at you, darling, you can just hide. Well, I can hear you.
So you can say, my mum's a play worker. Let her give you-
My mum is a play worker.
Yeah, your mama is a play worker. Who's she a play worker with?
Where does mum work?
Jamili.
Yeah, Jumanji Land. Everybody knows
Land.
Jumanji Land. Hey, we've been playing with your mama today and yesterday. Thank you for that, sweetheart.
That one. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't know it. That was just the most best thing ever. Do I have any other grown-ups in the room that are brave enough to answer that question? Do adults, parents have a role in their child's play, and if so, is that impact? Do you see it positively or negatively? You're allowed. Oh, we got to take her. Yes.
Oh, geez, I'm going to get my...
Just going to make a run. Come on, one more. Give me 3. Who's going next?
I think parents can have a negative impact on play areas because, like you said, mess, and they go, no, that's just too hard. And also, we're scared. We're scared that they're going to hurt themselves when they start to do play, especially if you see them putting up a beam up against the wall and you're like, far out, they're going to fall over and break their arms. We're very scared to let them try. But generally, as someone who has worked in early childhood and an early childhood teacher, but not doing that anymore, children don't get to that risk without doing the steps before the fall. So children are actually smarter than what we give them credit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely, they're smarter than we give them credit for. Is there anybody else? Oh, we do.
Just adding to that, the very first thing a child will do is look to their parent. And majority of the time it is for permission, but it's also just for the acknowledgement that it's okay.
Absolutely.
And allowing a child to try and do something, even though it is going to be messy, even though there is that potential for danger, we learn by making mistakes. It's exactly the same for every child.
Absolutely. Like, that's a round of applause right there. Like, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? That's what we advocate for. But you did touch on something super important, is the fact that we're scared. We're scared. Why are we scared? Kaycee, are you going to answer this one for me? Because I love the way you speak about this.
Okay. So we talking about play for the future, not just for the now. We're so used to stopping our children from climbing the tree or jumping in the puddle because we're worried about now. They might fall down and break their arm. They might get their shoes all muddy. But we don't talk about if we let them do these things now, how it will affect them in the future. So I'm talking about 15, 16, 17, making wise choices for themselves and for their bodies, because they've been able to make choices and decisions. They've been able to fail and get back up. And that's why I say it's really important to not just worry about the now, but we need to worry about the choices that we're making for our children, that for the future as well, if that makes any sense.
So yeah, when we talk about play, we don't just talk about playing for now and what is developmentally appropriate for that child, because it's actually up to that child to decide what is suitable to their body, as you touched on. That a child won't necessarily do something unless they feel capable and confident, or they will look to their mirror, and if their mirror says no, they're probably not going to do it. But we also talk about parenting for the future, because one day, of all my parents in the room who have young children, our children are going to get the keys to a car. And then what happens? If they have never had the opportunity to be exposed to risk, to actually push consequences and boundaries, they do not know, or they do not understand what those consequences, those real life consequences could be. But they start so much younger. They start when children are in play. And that is something that with our play groups we very much speak to and we very much advocate to, is that we need to stop worrying about the fact that they're 3 and actually start thinking about the fact that one day they're going to be much older, and we need them to understand that. But that can be hard.
Just adding to that, Angus and I actually had this conversation this morning, and I forgot that was in this, but when we are working with young children, we put all these things into place, and I think that we think we're going to see the outcomes, while they're in our space, and we're not, because unless we know them when they're 15, 16, 17 and onwards, that's when the outcomes or what we've been working hard to achieve, I feel like that's when those things will happen. And I do have a 17-year-old and I have parented her like this, and she's a fabulous human being, so go her.
She really is, but we are biased. So it is really hard for some of us as play people, where we create these places and these spaces where we want children to come and we want them to experience this kind of play. We want them to experience risk. But if their parents aren't on board with that initially, if they don't have that same perspective that we have, that we've discussed with some of you here today, we won't get them into those places and spaces. So what value are they if we can't yet get people to bring their children? And that's what we want to help people understand, is that before I started working with children, I became a parent, and before that I actually worked in workplace health and safety. So if I can overcome these fears and these barriers as a parent, I do believe any person can, but it does take a journey and it takes time. Okay, it takes time to unpack what is that particular family's triggers or fears. And for us as play people, sometimes we just feel like parents are stopping and stifling play without actually taking a step back to understand what that family may have been through and why they might be risk adverse, or if there's a particular trigger for them, what might have happened in that adult's life for them to have that in their places and their spaces. So, parents can be one of our biggest barriers, because if parents don't bring their children to play, we don't get to give them that rich opportunity. But parents can also be our biggest advocates, and we know that because over the years we have had thousands of parents come through our gates that now go and take that play out into the community. And with that, we see a huge difference in how we allow children to play more freely. We're about to get really deep, so before we do, I do want to issue a trigger warning, and there is some really deep content discussed in here, so especially for some of my little people in the room, please just be mindful. If anybody wants to leave at any particular point in time, please do. Okay, we all got that? All right. So sometimes when we have parents and people in spaces, do we actually ever stop to consider, has that mother experienced a loss? Have they experienced a stillbirth? Is there a reason why they want to wrap around their child so deeply that they don't want them to get hurt? Domestic and family violence, a big one that comes down is we don't want to let children out of line of sight. Have we ever stopped to consider how that might be for somebody from a culturally diverse background, or a First Nations person who is part of the stolen generation or the next generation of that? Why would we want to let our children out of our sight if this is something that we have been through? Terminal illness, if you're a parent facing a terminal illness, what that might look like for the way that you parent your children. Infertility. When women and families have spent years longing for a child, how hard it is to let them do dangerous things. And we don't think about this. We don't think about what has happened in that parent's and that family's life when we're constantly advocating for more play. And how do we break down this barrier? Also neurodivergence, children that are non-speaking, children that abscond. That can be huge barriers for us as parents to bring children into spaces because we don't feel like we can keep them safe, and we don't necessarily trust anybody else to keep them safe either. So what do we do about that? We polled our families, this was a long time ago, and what was it? They were scared. They were scared that their children would get an injury, a broken bone. Death came up so many times. It wasn't just a fear of breaking an arm, it was, I am scared my child is going to die if I let them do these things, and that is heavy. That is heavy, especially when we do know multiple parents who have lost children, not infants, but have lost older children. Choking, being hurt, being excluded. So these are all the real fears in parents' lives as to why they don't want to allow their children to play or play outside of their sight or play freely. Does anything that's mentioned there surprise you? No? Got any takers? Is anybody surprised by any of the comments? Nope, so we all agree? Are those fears real? Yeah? No? Depends on the context, I suppose. So So we asked a bunch of parents, a couple, a handful, is that going to play? And we asked them what they feared. Ta-da! So when it comes to your child and playing, being playful, what scares you most?
Well, to start off with, I suppose her dying through me letting her do something. Right, that's the ultimate, right? And then down from that is like, you know, if she has an accident, then that permanent injury, you know, maybe not death, but the permanent injury kind of thing. And then you kind of get through the, well, if you break your arm or something, you know, that's not nice. That's, you know, fixable. But that, I suppose, protection of her feeling, like you really want to wrap them up into cotton wool because you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want them to feel anything from, whether it be physical or emotional, right? That's that first initial, that's what I'm fearful of.
Oh, I mean, serious injury, choking.
Yep.
I guess those are the fairly stock standard ones with those, and I mean, it plays true.
Immediately being that mum to that child back then. Like, I don't know why, but I just feel full of anxiety, probably because if I was walking through a shop or if I was at a park that was in a particular area, I don't know, or even if I was just pulling up and getting out of my car at home, I was scared that my child was going to be snatched. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Was going to be snatched from me, and it would take me days, even weeks, to go through the courts to get her back. That's what I was scared of then. And I was also a young parent, not super young, but young enough, 22. So I was scared of people watching me and judging me. And
we're in a play environment that I'm not aware of, picking something up and like eating something. That really scares me most.
really?
Yeah. So putting something in their mouth
because
and
of choking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really kind of scares me the most, the choking.
Like, I get anxious because my child is not a typical child. So we have all these barriers that prevent us from relaxing, which then in turn helps him relax and be involved.
That fear of being perhaps separated in an environment where you have no control over anything, because when you're in situations that involve medical professionals.
So they won't follow their own path.
Can you give us a little bit more on that?
Well, I think it takes a long time to believe in yourself, and it takes a long time to get through what the world throws at you. But there's kind of two ways you can go. You can either kind of just plod along, or you can figure out the path that you want, and that's kind of what I want for them. I want them to be able to be themselves and to do whatever makes them and their heart happy.
Yeah, sure. There are some really key words in there, and I wonder what you took from that. So I'm going to ask you, these are all related to one of the people who spoke. Can you, based on that, tell me what you think is their trigger, is their trauma? Any takers? So family violence, who do you think was the person? What was their worry? What was their concern? Somebody said their child would be taken. Yeah, makes sense, right? They don't want to let them out of their line of sight. They're worried that someone's going to take their child. A rare disease, complex rare disease, what might be that family's fear? Yeah. Death. Yep. See, this is, you will get the answers. Complex health needs. Now, this is from, is it the child, is it the adult? I don't know. Complex health needs. What was that person's fear? What do you think? You don't know, do you? I could get you all to, run across the room. You don't know. Neurodivergence, fight, flight, anxiety. Which parent was that? I just gave you the answer. And finally, stillbirth. Can anybody pick who lost their baby, who came into this world not breathing from that video? Because one of the people that spoke there did. Can anybody pick it? Yeah. So we often have this perception, this judgment, what we think has gone on in a parent's life, but when we actually step back and we unpack these things, we have no idea. We've got no idea what's gone on for them and why it is that they don't want to allow their children to play. And how can we help them along that journey? And how can we get them to a place where we can overcome those fears unless we understand what's gone on first? And that doesn't happen overnight. All the people in that video are people who have come to our sessions and we have gotten to learn them over time. They are all people in which we have played with their children, and as we have understood them, for this project, we asked them, and there are so many more that we wanted to talk to, but they were not comfortable, including the mother whose child that was hit by a car, including the First Nations family who has had, is the generation of people who were removed. They just weren't comfortable talking to us, but we could give you 1,000 stories like this where we actually don't know until we get to know that family what has happened. So we're going to give you the other end of it now, and they're going to each tell you what has happened.
Can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, in terms of the journey to have Lana. Okay, so 9 years was the period between, all right, I think we're ready to try, let's start trying, to actually getting her, welcoming her.
However you want to wear that.
Brought her off the website. There was no 21-day return policy, I found.
So fertility struggles? Oh, isn't that one lovely? That's my favourite.
Premature, 3 months premature. He ended up spending the first 10 months of his life.
3 months premature, how far does that make him gestation?
So he was born at 29 weeks.
So he was
29 weeks
super early.
Very, very early. Harvey he's got several issues going on. He had what's called a TOF. The exact medical phrasing escapes me right at this second, but it's basically a condition where his esophagus and his trachea grew into each other, where he, and then his stomach was completely detached from the normal. It was an extremely stressful time, starting from right on 6-8 weeks when we went in for our first scan.
Okay.
Where, they're just, every time there just seemed to be another issue. We had to be put up to the Mater Hospital because they had these ultrasound machines, which are just insane. They're some of the best in the world there. And yes, when he was born, he had that condition, but unfortunately for him, it wasn't the only thing going on. He had an imperforate anus, which by itself is actually not that uncommon. It's where you are quite literally born without a butthole. However, in Harvey's situation, where his trachea and esophagus crossed into each other, instead of just breathing in and out of his lungs, it was breathing into his stomach and his digestive tract with no way to get out. And he was quite unstable when he was born. He had to be resuscitated twice on day one, and he needed emergency surgery, which we were pretty flat told he had about a 90% chance of not making it at that time. He did make it, obviously. In the days that followed, he had a Category 3 brain bleed, which eventually turned into a condition called hydrocephalus, where your brain is not able to process all your brain fluid. So his head pretty flat out grew up to the size of a balloon, requiring a good deal of neurological intervention.
From the fluid?
From the fluid, yes.
Harvey's 3 or 4 now, and he's actually taking his first step. So he does have a huge number of complexities, including cerebral palsy. And with a lot of intervention and therapy, he is actually starting to do some walking. He can do 4-point crawling.
I was in a relationship and the red flags were probably there from the get-go. Angie would tell you they were.
100% they were.
I didn't see them, of course, until it just blew up and went kaboom really very quickly.
So you were in a relationship with somebody?
We were married. We had a planned pregnancy, and then I found out, that he was a substance abuser and whatnot, and it got nasty very quickly.
So this is Kaycee's story. Lola is that child, and that man is back in prison. So those were a very real threat to our family that he would take her.
April 2022, I was due to give birth to my second child. He was overdue, and I went in to get injuries and found out he'd passed away that day. So he was stillborn at 40 and 3 weeks. So, yes, that's what happened. And then got pregnant with Bo 4 months later, so just anxiety ever since.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so anxious and worried about everything he does. Oh, there was definitely, a little bit of anxiety from having a baby before Frankie, who was my stillborn. There was definitely anxiety with having a first baby, but definitely not as bad as it is now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Yes. I just want him with me all the time.
Yeah.
So.
So Alex went in for her induction, and before they started it, she was told that there was no heartbeat. She is a nurse, and her fear was choking, and she is an RN because her baby came into this world not breathing. So her biggest fear is that her baby will stop breathing
So
again.
could you tell us how many children you have and their ages?
I have 4, 14, 13, 9 and 5. So we've got autism, ADHD, C and hyperactivity. We've got epilepsy, anxiety.
Yep. That's lots of things.
Oh, and auditory processing, sensitivities to sound, sights, touches, things like that. Yeah. I've got to take everyone's, every person's
needs into consideration.
It's got to be a package deal. Yeah.
Can you imagine going out with 4 children and they all have a complexity of needs as a single mum? Especially when one's a runner, and we know that little one, we have to keep our eyes on
I
him.
had a perfectly healthy pregnancy and went into a perfectly spontaneous labour, and then I gave birth to a baby that was perfectly flat. So he suffered a hypoxic brain injury, and that has resulted in some amount of permanent brain damage. They don't like to call that those words anymore. We didn't find that out until he was 2 and a bit, when he had a second MRI. So
you had to push for?
Yeah, had to push for. So he was transferred hospitals. He wasn't in hospital for very long, especially compared to a lot of other people who end up in NICU. But that whole process of being
separated.
So we were separated for pretty much his first 7 days. There's nothing that feels more, I don't want to talk about this anymore. There's nothing that feels
foreign to a mum.
Yeah, than giving birth to your baby and having to leave them.
Yeah.
And in the first instance, I didn't even have to leave him. He was taken away.
Yeah.
And
that was my son, who ended up in NICU from a brain injury. I didn't see him before he was taken out of the room and then transferred to another hospital.
And the neurologist said, I will do one more test, and if there's nothing on that test, he's like, you really do need to go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, he said, because the issues that you're having with your mind. And I remember the day that the neurologist rang me and he's like, so I found something. And I was like, okay. The night before, I remember being okay, but I was writing emails and not sending them, just in case. And I was in a really bad situation with his father that if something had happened to me, none of my family would have any contact with my son. We were already in the court process, but it meant nothing. So the lawyers advised to write a letter. Write a letter to put with, all your other paperwork that details out what you want for your son, And even if this Friday one is the last, then I still got 10 more years than what he gave me.
When we were filming this, Emily was just diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. She has I can't even say it, a really long rare disease that causes tumours, and this was the one that they got to too late. She has just finished all of her treatment, but when she talks about she got 10 years more than what she thought, because they basically told her 10 years ago, you won't live to see your son's 3rd birthday. She's still going. She now has another child, but she's the one who said that she, her biggest fear is for her children to grow up not being happy, not being who they are, because her fear was that she won't see that. She won't be around to protect them. She won't be around to see what they grow up and who they turn out to be as adults. So her fear was wildly different to the rest of them because she lives with looming death every day as a parent that she will not see her children grow up. Was anybody surprised when they actually saw the fears that go with the people? That light, man. No, you're a lively bunch, aren't you? Was there anybody that was surprised by that? It goes back to that whole you just can't judge a book by its cover, right? We don't necessarily know what has happened. Little Harvey that was spoken about, their fear was choking because that child cannot eat solid food. So for him, any kind of food product going into his mouth would almost certainly lead to a catastrophic outcome because of all those surgeries that he had. I already spoke about Alex, who Frankie was her stillborn. She was a nurse and her fear was still choking. Therese is actually in the room. Straight away death, because it took her so long to bring a baby into this world. I myself, it's being separated because my baby was taken from me the moment he was born. He needed that. But I experienced so much anxiety with my second born than I ever did my first. And it's supposed to be the other way around. Deep reflections on how I parent him is so different because he does have a complexity of needs, and I don't let him do the things that I let my firstborn do. And I definitely have become a helmet mum. Brain injury, I am so guilty of being able to tell you that I let my firstborn do so many things without a helmet on, and now it's like, no way, if there are wheels involved, you put that on, because this is my bias, this is my trauma, and this is how I feel I need to protect my children. So when we say that we understand from a parent's perspective, we do, because not only have we lived it ourselves, we have had thousands of people that we are so privileged to share this with us. Some of their most deeply rooted, most awful things that have happened in their lives, but we can't help them overcome that barrier until we know a little bit first. So we really want this collective impact. We keep saying that we want to raise children that can play not just in the places and spaces where they're with us, those of you in the room who work with children or for communities, but we want to make sure that parents have what they need to feel understood, because if we're not helping the parents along that journey to understand play, how are we going to bring down this systemic barrier for children in every place, in the playgrounds, in the parks, in the shopping centres, where we seem to have become such a childhood intolerant society? We seem to want to stifle play anywhere it's happening, and we want to change that voice because we don't want to raise children that just get to play here. We want to raise children that can play everywhere and anywhere. The photo that we showed you at the beginning of our family portrait this is the same day. And we like to say that, we actually do practice what we preach, and we were not at all prepared to end up in the water that day. The water's like way over there. We're over here in the forest. But this is what we want other parents to be able to experience, is that joy of letting go of that fear of judgment, because this is what happens, the joy on these children's face when we're like, well, none of us have a change of clothes, but that's where they want to be. And as anybody who works with families and children, it's our job to help families bring down that fear of judgment. That's the first place that we can start in helping people, is that it's okay for your child to play this way. And it's okay if they want to do that, because I can tell you so many parents want to let their children do it too, but they're worried about what all of us are thinking. We're also super worried that they're going to end up on social media. Has everybody seen that on their community pages now? Like the child who might actually be out playing and there's a photo of somebody who's not doing the right thing? Yeah. So that's just food for thought, that fear of judgment, especially in a world where we're taking photos and putting them on social media, is so real, which is the perfect segue into, these are our social links. So if you would like to follow us, please do. But I am going to leave you with that thought of help our parents on their journey to understand more play, so they're not just being able to play in the spaces that we're creating for them, but they can play more freely anywhere. And that's us, guys.